Good evening to all of my health seekers out there. We are doing a webinar tonight on nutrition, on kids, on the way it affects behavior, the way it affects our health, and giving you guys some more tips and tools to really use to be able to help live a healthier, more elevated lifestyle. Because that's really ultimately what we're all after, is experiencing life to its fullest potential. And there are things that start to get in the way. They start to get in the way of us living our life the way that we thought we wanted to, or maybe within our values that we were hoping to. And one of the biggest things that we can sit down and do is figure out, is it really the behavior that's affecting me? Or is it that effect of that behavior? Because often we want to put a name to something. So they've got a behavioral issue. Maybe they've got sensory issue. Maybe they've got a focus and an attention issue. And some people go looking and seeking for a name to help them understand what's going on. And what we need to often do is take just a step back for a moment, because we can get so hyper focused on one thing. You know, the child might, you might have got an email from the school, or maybe you were like many of our parents that had a sit down meeting with an entire council about, here's what's going on with your child. And maybe the teacher's giving feedback of like, they're not focusing, they're not able to keep up with other kids, they lost their recess time, they didn't get a green, they got a red card for the day, you know, whatever it is. And we get a little bit hyper focused on like, oh no, what's going on? I'm feeling really judged as a parent. Why is my child doing this? And you feel like it's a complete reflection on you and your skills to parent. And sometimes you've got to just step back and look at the really big picture to figure out, okay, what's going on here? Is it the fact that my child's not focusing in school that's really bothering me? Is it instead maybe the stress that it's bringing to me as judgment? Or is it the fact that now you're worried about future? Are they going to get behind? Are they going to struggle later on in life? Can they get a good relationship and friends and a marriage and a job and children? You know, we just start to snowball often situations and sometimes just out of control. And that's, you know, a subjective term of what's out of control to you. Sometimes we don't take any consideration into it at all. But I think the best thing to do is look at the big picture and say, okay, what are we trying to achieve here? And you can go as far back if you're someone that likes to write down goals and write down, here's our family's values and here's where we want to live. And there's times where we get outside of those values and we got to figure out what brings us there. What brings us outside of our family's values? If it's kind, connected, loving family that's encouraging and empathetic and, you know, loves one another, has dinner time together and creates this great bond. What gets us outside of that bond that we were looking for? What causes us to go here instead of here together as a family that you very possibly want to be? And when you start identifying those stress points and those behaviors that bring you out here, that's really when you can get some clarity around the situation of like, okay, here, I can tell what's going on here. You know, there might be an emotional connection to something that happened at school or at work or in the home that might trigger something. And what we find in our office, it is stress. Big shocker, right? It is stress. So let me take a big step back and just explain to you what stress is, where stress comes from, because there's three forms. There's physical stress, there's chemical stress, and there's emotional stress. And they're really all interrelated. I know often we want to pull each one of those apart and just study the toxins in our life or the chemical stressors, or just look at the physical stress or lack of physical stress that we're getting, because what's more stressful in our bodies is not moving them. Sitting down, having a sedentary lifestyle and playing video games than it is moving too much, or maybe, falling and having a trauma, playing, football, basketball. While they can both be stressful, there's a balance that needs to occur. or we want to examine just the emotional component and maybe go to counseling about it. Just really understanding that stress, our body has to handle stress. It encompasses all stress, and stress will start to cause inflammation, irritation, and irritability inside of our bodies. And it has a harder time handling life. And what we start to do is lose our adaptability to stress. Pretty soon, one more little stressful thing, one cheeseburger, one dairy product, one sugar cookie, one red dye 40 licorice or lollipop is going to send us over the edge and cause our bodies to just go haywire. So here's what we look at. Let's choose our stress, and let's choose our stress wisely is often what I say. There are professionals in this world that can go over toxins in the world and how to be able to remove them in your life. You can Google it. You can find toxic free, food dyes, or not food dyes, laundry detergents and things to put in the air and purify the air in your water. I mean, there's many things that you can do to examine that process and what's in your food, which we're going to talk a little bit about tonight and how that affects the brain. You can also get a trainer and adapt and look at the physical component of it. And there's apps and everything to be able to help you with that. There's also emotional support. There's parenting groups. There's practitioners that can help you with that portion of your life. So we're not going to break down all of it, but if you're looking for help in some of those areas where like, I just can't do this alone, absolutely reach out and find someone like that. We've got some really good resources in our office to be able to help us there. But when I say choose your stress wisely, I'm saying when you know something is going to cause you stress, let's take a step back and not, add that stress into our lives. The stress our body goes through will start to take a toll on all other systems. So here's what we often will see. When we sit down with a patient and we look at all the stress that's been in their lives, we'll start to see a pattern emerging of the fight or flight or the sympathetic nervous system response. So many of you have heard me talk before, you know all about the fight or flight response or that sympathetic side of your nervous system. So your brain and your body, as you know, have to be in clear and concise communication. When there's stress that gets stuck there and your body has to handle it, it becomes a self-perpetuating cycle and we start to lose functionality. Now, your body and your nervous system, your brain and central nervous system have two modes of operation. They have a fight or flight mode, gas pedal mode, and they have a brakes or a parasympathetic resting, healing, digesting, growth side of your nervous system. And what happens when your body is under stress will trigger a fight or flight response. We trigger a different response inside of our body. And here's the biggest news that some people don't fully understand, but whether you are in that stressful situation, and this is an emotional component to it, or you're thinking about that stressful situation, your brain doesn't know the difference. It's going to have the same response. So what happens with that fight or flight response that goes on in our lives, and this can often start, as you know, if you've heard me talk, preconception, conception, you get your mother's nervous system, the brain, the body is the first thing to develop in utero, even before the heart can beat, because something's got to tell that heart to beat. The birth process can be highly sympathetic for a mom and for the baby. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And into babies and colic and ear infections and teething and reflux. And we can just put the gas pedal down and trigger that fight or flight response early and often. And what happens is your brain perceives a threat. It dumps about 1,200 chemicals throughout your entire body to change the physiology of every cell to handle the threat that's there. What will occur instead of rational, organized thought in your forebrain? So if you guys have seen me do the flip the lid analogy, your forebrain, that prefrontal cortex, does a lot of the calm, organized, rational thought. Your hindbrain, the amygdala, does the reactive and impulsive thought. So when you're talking about flipping your lid, now the reactive and impulsive side of your nervous system is running the show. Stick with me because this really does have a lot to do with food and the ways our body reacts to foods. Now that fight or flight response is impulsive and reaction and very reactive, which is often what we're doing when we're in a state of stress and we're kind of stuck there. We aren't being very conscious of our decisions, right? We're like, when we call it stress eating, or maybe even stress avoiding food during this time. This fight or flight response will cause your heart rate to increase, your blood pressure to go up. It causes your digestion to get turned down, your immune response to get turned down. It will cause the blood to be shunted from those vital organs where everything should be out to the limbs to fight or flee. It also turns up our senses. So your sense of taste, smell, touch, vision, your tactile senses, and your movement senses all heightened, and we are ready to fight or flee. We're ready to look for an enemy. We're ready to literally be able to save our lives from what's going on and handle the threat that's there. Now, this should be a very short-term, short-lived response. We should be able to turn that sucker on, handle the threat that's there, turn it off, and go to balanced. But what will happen is we start to feed that fight or flight response, our body becomes in a perpetual state of stress. So if you remember me saying, your body, under those stressful circumstances, digestion is turned down, and immune response right now is important to understand is turned down. Hormones are all out of control, right? The cortisol's up, blood sugar's high because your limbs you need that quick energy. Your brain needs quick energy. So what will happen is your brain is saying, I need energy, right? I'm in survival. Give me something quick and easy. And this is when we get on that sugar fix, because your brain needs that quick energy, right? That insulin's being released because of the glucose in your system, because it's ready to fight or flee, which should have been a short-term response. Now your brain's starting to crave sugars. It's easy to cave into it, right? You're like, my kid is just a snacker. You might just be a snacker. You might be like, dude, I will live off of chips and brownies and pretzels and, maybe cheese. And so does my kid. Like, nobody sits down and eats a full meal together. Not only are we busier than we've ever been before on the go-go schedule, which right now is slowed down. So hopefully we can kind of get back to the basics of what matters right now. We don't sit down and have a meal, like fully cook a nutritious meal and have a salad and some fiber and high dense nutrients, and maybe some green beans that have been sauteed in some really nice oil that's not highly processed, and a nice cut of meat that wasn't under stress, right? Because eating that protein from an animal byproducts and an animal that's under stress, we are going to get those stress hormones, and we continue to feed that cycle. What we'll do is if we don't slow down, if we don't just do a singular focus on the food that's in front of us in a meal, and maybe have a conversation around us with the family that's there, our body just continues to go. And I know we're all guilty of like eating while we're driving, or, pacing and walking and having a conversation, or scrolling our cell phone. You might be watching this video right now, trying to take it all in, and you haven't even noticed how much food you've eaten, right? Because you're not focusing on the food and the taste and the environment around you. Instead, your brain's going in a million different directions. You might be seeing something stressful, and your brain can't tell you that it's full, that satiety, feeling. You also have senses of enteric senses, and that's your internal body senses. And a lot of us are shut down to it. We don't listen to those internal systems saying, slow down. I'm not feeling well. I'm in pain, whether it's a cramped stomach, or an erratic heartbeat, or, maybe that tight tension in your chest or throat. We just aren't listening to it. We have to listen to that feedback. So my biggest thing to be able to do is to sit down and actually have a meal, whether you're with yourself or your family, and enjoy it. Chew it, swallow it, have a conversation with other people, take a drink of water. It should take a lot longer time to chew and swallow our food than we ever give it credit for. Someone says 7 chews per bare minimum, sometimes even up to 20 chews, just kind of depending on the bite that you've taken. for that full cascade to occur of the chewing and the enzymes in the mouth and the swallowing and the enzymes in the stomach and the upper GI and the middle GI and the lower GI, the more broken down it is, the better it is to pull out those nutrients, the better density of the food, the higher dense the nutrients that our cells can get. So here's what we look at. We look at, as chiropractors, our central nervous system as a whole, because we know that our brain and our body controls everything in this entire being, right? Every single cell, organ, and tissue inside of your body is run by that nervous system. What we do is make sure that that is fully connected. Your job is to make sure you feed those connections well, right? Feed those cells well, and they need high dense nutrients. They need you to not be in fight or flight and to eat under calm circumstances, to chew it up well, and to be able to digest that food. Now, here's a couple other things that we're going to talk about with this, is that your body under a state of stress cannot absorb the nutrients either. We've got a couple different things that we are looking at. Not only the quality of the food is really going to matter. The less the toxins, like we talked about, the less the stress inside of the body. So food nutrition, the nutrition of the food matters. The time in which you eat is going to matter, meaning taking time to sit down and eat and chew your food is going to matter. Unfortunately, today, our food is more dead than it ever was before. Our soil's more depleted. We've added more chemicals to it. We've tried to rush the whole farming process. Those of you that are farmers, you understand the soil turnover and how to rotate crops and how to really nourish the soil. You know what I'm talking about. Unfortunately, we don't have enough magnesium in our soil anymore. So our food is less dead, and it has less nutrients inside of it, less enzymes inside of it. So there often magnesium supplementation needs to occur in order for our body to fully function the right way. Omega-3s, the omega-3 is the fatty from fatty fish, and or you can get omega-3s in other plant-based ways. When you're looking at that, unfortunately, our meat is very stressed. So you're getting a lot of omega-6s and 9s in our meat instead of the 3s, and we don't have enough. Those are the fat that lines the nervous system, the brain and the body. Sometimes we'll need to supplement with that. Our probiotics in our gut is often turned down. Once again, digestion has been turned down. We need to add in some probiotics about an hour before bedtime, as long as you hadn't had a big meal. Let the body replenish the gut. Yes, there's times where you need multivitamins, you need some more enzymes. I mean, there are professionals that can draw your blood and run stool samples. I mean, they can do anything under the sun to look at what you're deficient for. However, if you are not taking care of the stress that's there and the stress that's been stuck there, and I'm pointing to my neck because that's often where it's at, is in that upper cervical spine, then we aren't going to be able to get down to the heart of the problem. And we're going to continue to cover up symptoms, maybe throw some really expensive supplementation inside of our bodies, inside of our kids' bodies, and not slow the body down, where we're like, okay, we just want sugar. We want very, easy to break down food. My kid lives on pretzels. Yes, because those are really easy to digest, like a quick sugar fix to the brain to let it maintain its state of fight or flight. Also, getting your body out of fight or flight. So choosing your stress wisely, like I said, biggest thing that we do in our office and what we have found is that lid is closed down tight with chiropractic adjustments. When they run the research and they have hooked people up to the electrodes along the spine and the brain, and they say, okay, where are the changes that are occurring inside of the body when you are getting a chiropractic adjustment? And it's in that prefrontal cortex, it's in that brain. It helps the body that's been in fight or flight with a lid flipped or easily flipped on a regular basis, maintain and inhibit that amygdala and that fight or flight response from occurring. When our bodies feel balanced, digestion can be balanced, growth can be balanced, rational decisions can be balanced, slowing our bodies down and not making decisions out of fear or stress is balanced. And that's the most beautiful thing. Right near that upper cervical spine or near that brain, in that upper cervical spine region, is also one of the most important nerves in our body. It is that gut-brain connection. It's the vagus nerve. It's one of 2 of the 12 cranial nerves that will leave the cranial vault. The other cranial nerves affect the rest of the face, tongue, swallowing, speech. When we're looking at the vagus nerve that exits that foramen magnum, the upper cervical spine, it wanders throughout the organs and it runs that brake pedal response. It runs that parasympathetic nervous system. So not only do we find stress in being a perpetual cycle and that our bodies need to be calmed down from that, we'll see what we call low vagal nerve tone. And when that is occurring, we know that a patient cannot get themselves into the proper balance of parasympathetic and out of that fight or flight zone in order for the gut to work well, in order for the immune system to work well, in order for the endocrine hormone cycles to be able to work well and in balance, so the body can be in harmony and playing this beautiful symphony instead of this stressed out, nirvana that will continue to occur inside of our bodies if we don't start pumping the brakes. So here's my takeaway. Yes, we run neurological scans. I know many of you know us. We know what we do. We measure the stress on the system. We look at that vagus nerve, and then we're going to help families through this process. We need you to fully understand maybe what's going on with your child or with you, and seeing, why does my kid freak out to sit still during dinner? Well, probably because that fight or flight response is still activated until it's calmed, and they cannot sit still in order to chew food. They probably, if you remember when we talk about a subluxation, it's a processing issue. That fight or flight response, if you remember, all the senses are turned up. So that chewing or swallowing can actually feel, because the senses are altered, like pain, and the child doesn't want to do it. You wouldn't want to purposely put yourself through pain either. They maybe can't handle the chewing because of the ears. It's really close to the ears. They can't handle that. They can't handle the tactile inside of their mouth, maybe even touching it with their hands, the look, the smell, all those senses have been altered with a subluxation. So we might see that piece of it as well. But families right now, like nobody's business before, are home together. Let's sit down and have a meal and give your kids some grace to know they might want to get up and get a little bit of a wiggle break. They might want to talk. They might not chew their food appropriately. The best thing we can do is be a social example to them, using our silverware, cutting it up into small pieces, chewing it, swallowing it, and them watching you, right? Do as you do, not as you say. Or do whatever the old saying is, do as I do, not as I say, or do as I say, not as I do. Either way, they're going to learn from you, parent. So to be able to sit down, using a napkin, using social etiquette. I know we're guilty of this as our family when we're busy as well. We're like, why didn't we get out the knives? Instead, we're like picking up, too large of a bite and trying to put it in our mouth. Slow down and show them what to do, and have a good conversation with your kids tonight and these next few weeks, because we've got some time together. Like I said, I hope everybody gets down to the basics in meal prep. Have them help you. Have them touch the food ahead of time. If it's an aversion to them, don't make them. I remember the first time I ever touched raw chicken, I was like, it's so gross. It's going to take a little bit of time and a little bit of practice. They're going to be able to get through it. The best thing you can do is have them help you make that food, because it's going to be even more exciting for them to eat it later on in the day when it's ready to be served, or help them set the table with it. And what you're going to find over time is the more you can sit down, slow down, make the right food choices, eliminate snacks from the system, eliminate those processed sugars. Try to eliminate those foods that are the quick sugar fixes, like the pretzels and the chips, and that are low dense nutrients, because it's going to help calm the body down. It's going to help it slow down and digest the food instead of getting that quick sugar fix. Eliminate the snacks, put the snacks under lock and key, whatever you need to do for this to be successful. But I hope this is helpful to you. I also want to make sure that you know that that food is going to affect your immune system. Your immune system is going to affect your digestive system, right? Your nervous system, all of it. So making sure that you're still getting the right amount of movement in your life. After you're done eating, digesting your food, give it a hot minute, right, to be able to digest. but to get out and continue to do the things that you should already be doing as a family, going for a stroll and having good conversations and calming ourselves down and not looking and thinking about stressful stuff. This is going to be more important than ever before. Thank you for watching. I hope you guys have a fantastic day. And once again, do not crumble to fear. You guys, you've got this. Hold on to your families tight. Go to bed tonight. And also remembering that the last thing you tell yourself is the first thing you're going to remember in the morning. So whether you think you're not going to get enough sleep, whether you're afraid of what tomorrow's going to bring, you're going to wake up thinking you didn't get enough sleep and tomorrow is unexpected. Instead, calm down, take a deep breath, let yourself and your child know everything's going to be okay, that you're safe, that you're healthy, that you're happy, and that this world is going to become a better place when people put positive energy out into the world. Thanks.